Guys, welcome back. This is Sunrise Sports and MMA, and I got another hot video for you guys. Why don't we take it back to 2020, March of 2020? Infamous, right? COVID started, the sports seasons were suspended, championships were postponed. Shout out to the Miami Heat for making it to the last round against the Lakers, or the championship, the NBA championship round. But while almost every major league shut down, there was one organization that kept moving, right? The story of UFC navigating the COVID era. Again, guys, we're talking empty arenas. We're talking Fight Island, unforgettable fights, and why this period permanently changed the sport. I mean, we still have fights at the apex. So that must mean that the streaming rights and the streaming deals are just making the UFC money, where the gates for these fight nights are not as important, right? But let's look at this, right? The UFC events were postponed post March of 2020. UFC 249 was canceled multiple times. The Athletic Commission shut down operations. International travel became impossible. But instead, the UFC just waited and pivoted, right? One of the major events that took place, talking about Florida. The UFC partnered with Florida, if I'm not mistaken, Jacksonville. The mayor and the governor, again, not going into politics, but just stating the facts. Then the UFC made the Apex, as I just mentioned, their primary venue. No fans, no gate revenue, just fights. And this is, again, in a time where we had no sports. We had Tiger King and we had the Last Dance documentary, right? That was it. I think even the draft that took place around the summer, the NFL draft, was all virtual, right? It was insane. It was an insane time for us, right? So let's talk about the Apex real quick, right? The Apex, we had smaller cages, we had hot mics, we could hear the corners, we could hear the thuds of these strikes. It was insane. If you go back to some of those fights, one that comes to mind, of course, dear to everyone that's a fight fan, Poirier versus Hooker, or you could talk about Sean O'Malley's one-shot KO, right? Some of these fighters, they were under pressure, right? You had fighters knowing that everyone was looking at them, right? There was no other sports. For that period of time, you could say that the UFC drew more viewers than anything else when it came to sports demographics, right? To your Nielsen's and whatnot statistics. And then came one of the ballsiest moves I think I've ever seen when you think about sports business. Fight Island, right? We remember Fight Island was hosted by Abu Dhabi. I think it was Yas Island, if I remember correctly. And that's where we could get the international fighters, right? Because I think it was hard to get folks out of their countries. A lot of the Brazilians, the Europeans, a lot of the Russians could not get out, could not get flights out to the U.S. and vice versa. I think there was some, not sanctions, what do you call that? Like restrictions, right? Travel restrictions. But Fight Island, in my opinion, became a brand in its own right. What fights did we have there? I think it was a 3-week span, guys. I gotta do my research before I get on here and record, but Usman Masvidal, right? Remember that one, that card. It was originally supposed to be Gilbert, but if I remember correctly, Gilbert was actually caught COVID, right? Because I think he was training at American Top Team. We had Volkanovski versus Holloway. I think that was the second fight of the trilogy. And then we had Jan and Aldo as well. I mean, just classics, right? And then one fight that really stands out to me, I mentioned earlier, was the Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker fight. This was a fight night back in June of 2020. I mean, this was 5 rounds, no crowd, pure violence. You know, you could hear every strike echo. You could hear every breath. You know, you saw Poirier's composure. You saw Hooker's toughness. You saw the momentum was swinging back and forth. I mean, if you want to see a fight that is memorable, put that on. I mean, it was just movie-like, right? But again, a lot of great fights during that era. We had Gaethje Ferguson. That was just crazy. It was short. It was chaos. Remember, this was Tony Ferguson, who was on a, if I remember correctly, 11-fight win streak against the up-and-comer Gaethje, who was, the winner was going to fight for the belt against Khabib. And we all got shafted by never seeing Ferguson versus Nurmagomedov, right? Khabib versus Tony would have been one for the ages in their prime. I think we know the outcome now, but nonetheless, Ferguson was on a streak unseen before. We saw Kamaru obviously not only maintain his level of activity, but surge and beat Masvidal twice, KOing him in Jacksonville. We saw the rise of Izzy, of the style bender. We saw Max Holloway put on the performance of an elite striker against Kadar. We saw Chandler's UFC debut KO, if I'm not mistaken, against Hooker. I think that was also on the undercard of the Jacksonville UFC event, if I'm not mistaken. And again, we saw Amanda Nunes, right, the Lioness, just taking scalps left and right, just destroying anything in her way. So why did the COVID era matter? Again, eyeballs. The UFC was able to pivot. They went more on the streaming and the broadcast. They did not focus on the gates. I mean, the star power was there. You could lean on the Apex. I mean, it was just outstanding, guys. I remember vividly watching these fights with my parents, talking with my friends about this while we're, in our homes, sequestered, away from society, and just a memorable moment in time. And thankfully, the UFC was there, right? So look forward to hearing from anyone, their feedback during that time. Great for me in terms of a fighting fan. At least we had something on the weekends, and I think even some cards took place on Sunday and Friday, if I'm not mistaken. There was a few of those cards in the day. So yeah, this is Sunrise Sports and MMA. As always, like and subscribe and share, and I'm out.